Hey, listen up. Yeah, we here and we locked in. Let's keep it going all the way to the top 10. We feel the turtle, so it's no other option. Fred and Ryan, just watch them. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell.
What's up, Terp fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Shell and Tell podcast. An exciting episode of Shell and Tell. We got a lot to cover, man. It's been a crazy whirlwind. I'd say about the last 48 to 72 hours, somewhere in that range. It's been absolutely nuts. The Terps football squad starting practice with their upcoming Pinstripe Bowl matchup with Virginia Tech, but it's been a lot of sleepless nights for Locks and crew leading up to yesterday's National Signing Day.
Yeah, Locke's working his magic again with multiple top-level flips at the last minute. He always does this.
Yep, and we're going to give you a rundown of who these guys are, what to expect from the 2022 class, and next steps.
Yeah, man. I mean, my excitement might be even a little higher than it was just about, I don't know, an hour and a half ago, because as much excitement around National Signing Day as there was, what broke about an hour to us recording this show, Dante Demas is coming back as a Terp. The whole clip that he had in the back of the end zone, he's being carted off to the field. I'm coming back. Well, it came true. Big guy, big time, player to come back and help Talia lead this team to some success.
Yeah, 3 times honorable mention, all Big Ten. We saw what he did this year and what difference he made on the field. Losing him just took the wind out of our sails till we could find anybody to even fill half of those his shoes.
Yeah, and when you talk about just the explosiveness of the offense and what could come back for next year, Demas, with him coming back in the fold, gives Maryland a game changer. Now the question remains, just how many games he ends up playing next year as he battles back from his injury, from lower leg injury, was more than just a torn ACL. But when you look at what he was able to do in 4 full games, 28 catches, 507 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that includes 4 catches for 61 yards against Iowa. So an undoubted wide receiver number 1 for this room, and what was already expected to be another deep room next year. So definitely a big addition that adds a lot of optimism to the offense.
Absolutely. And this is a guy that obviously has pro prospects. A lot of people had him tagged somewhere around the 3rd round as a draft pick potential, even with the injury. But to your point, it was a very serious knee injury that, by NFL draft day, it will not be ready, will not be healed. So I think long term, this is probably the right decision for Demas to kind of go back out there, even if it is a shortened season for him and it means he's only going to get to play through conference play, showcase that he can come back from the injury, that he is fully healthy. And again, this is just a huge, huge addition for the Terps.
Yeah, if you're not going to be ready day 1 for the NFL, there's no guarantee they're going to give you another shot 6 months later. You know that Locks is going to give you whatever shot you need to show your talents out there next year, whether it be the last 6, whether it be the last 4. Even if you just end up you're a player in name only, you're a coach on the field, and you get to play in a bowl game at the end of the year. Like, at least you get to show out and try to show NFL teams that your talent is still there. So it seemed like the only option, unless he was going to actually be ready like early summer, and no one really saw that happening.
Yeah, exactly. And I think kind of originally, I'd expected that even like with the injury that he would have been gone, but it sounded like, and I don't know if maybe the injury was maybe reevaluated, the rehab timeline maybe was reanalyzed and got pushed back, anything like that. That I'm not privy to, but I do think that just that injury timeline did influence that decision, and like I said before, just getting back to 100%, but that ability to now go out, go out and showcase yourself, that you can return to that top-notch form. And I think if you can prove that, you can have the possibility of becoming potentially a day 1 selection.
Absolutely. Well, he's going to have a lot of competition in that wide receiver room. We already know how talented of a wide receiver room that was prior to the end of this season. Well, it's National Signing Day 2022. Yesterday, we're 24 hours now removed. And there were some big gets at the wide receiver core and across the board for this team that we're going to talk about. But I thought a good conversation for us to have is, I think we kind of take for granted sometimes, us being around the program and knowing the sport and knowing how collegiate athletics work, that some people might not have a true understanding of like what National Signing Day really is and what it means. So I thought it'd be good for us to kind of have that conversation, because this is the ink to paper moment, right? This is and there's so much that goes into it, that it's not just Locks, it's an entire team and his staff, and Locks thanks his staff on this.
Just want to start off by thanking our coaches and our staff. Recruiting is a team effort, and anytime you have an opportunity to have a signing day like we had today, there's a lot of people that played a major role in getting us through the finish line, including professors here on campus that gave us their time on Fridays and our academic support people. So again, when you bring people on your campus and recruit them, there's so many people behind the scenes that play a role in helping us really sell the brand of Maryland, the University of Maryland. So many people to thank.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you get a lot of confusion, I think, amongst fans with the difference between committing and actually signing, right? Some people think that even after signing, that players can then decommit back out of that and go to another school yet still. So explain that as best you can. What's the difference between an actual commitment and once the ink is dry on the paper?
Yeah, so I'll even go kind of even a step further, because I think when you look at like recruitments, for example, you see a kid post an offer, blessed to receive an offer from so and so, but beginning August 1st of their senior year is when they receive an official offer. So that is when that scholarship offer becomes valid, essentially. But everything still is verbally agreed to, and then National Signing Day during the early signing period, which is the new February, essentially the new February signing period. But that is when the verbal aspect of your recruitment gets thrown out the window. And when you sign what's called a letter of intent, that's what a college coach will send to the individual prospect. That needs to be signed by the prospect and their family. And then once that's signed, faxed over to the school and approved by compliance, that prospect is then signed into the agreement with the in this case it'd be the University of Maryland, and it would really mainly be like a rare situation where, for instance, if Loxie was fired today or yesterday,
Probably not going to
that
happen after yesterday.
exactly, it might
I
be an
think he's
extension.
safe.
I think
he's
so.
safe.
I think so, but that would be a situation where a player would be able to request out of their national letter of intent. So yesterday is when you take the verbal aspect out of the equation.
So if they didn't want to play for University of Maryland at this point, it would basically be the transfer at this,
Yep.
and they, everybody gets one automatically now with the new rules, but that would be burning their only one automatic transfer already.
Yep,
And it's
exactly.
still instant. Like, even though they haven't played a down for the Terps yet, if next week somebody wants to use or get out of their positioning within the Terps and go somewhere else, they would have to burn that transfer, and it would be instant for next year.
Theoretically, yes, but what would realistically end up happening is they probably reach out to the school. Those two sides have parties, and if the school, the staff feels that it's just a situation where they don't think it's going to improve, if it's only weeks removed, is a possibility that the staff just does it out of kindness of their heart, really. But
Breaking a contract by both parties agreeing.
exactly,
basically.
like it's
Right.
just best for both sides at that point. But yeah, at that point, if the coaching staff says, look, no, nothing material has changed, if you want out, then that's it. So yeah, it would be Portal.
So these guys are locked in pretty much for the good, for the
Yeah.
movie, at least for the
least for
the
2022.
first year, for the
Yeah.
2022 season.
Yeah.
Uh,
No guarantees
another
after that.
right.
We've
Another
seen that.
term, another term that gets thrown around that maybe fans don't completely understand: early enrollee. Explain that in its most basic terms. What an early enrollee is.
Yeah, essentially, all the academic requirements are satisfied, and if I'm not mistaken, the only required credit that they need in that fourth year would be that English. It usually is English, so they'll take it over a summer session or whatnot, and then once you have the academic requirements squared away, you go work through compliance with the university, and then get squared away, and you're able to then get approved to skip the second semester of your senior year of high school and enroll that instead one semester earlier at university. So in this case, these players would enroll January 20th, whereas the remainder of the 2022 class would move in June at the end of the school year.
So basically, it gives them a 6-month head start on getting into the training and the conditioning and the practicing and the playbook and all of that. So, I mean, it is big for these kids, right? Especially kids that have aspirations of playing early. You know, guys that want to play in their first year as a freshman. That's big getting as an early enrollee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at a guy like CJ Dupree, he was able to get in early. He was able to help get him on the field a little bit earlier. So yeah, there are definitely instances where you look at when the true freshmen, the guys that do play the most, they're usually correlated to the guys that have been on campus the longest. So definitely it helps.
Gotcha. Now, it's not all willy-nilly that the colleges can go out there and offer as many scholarships as they want and just bring in as many athletes as they possibly want. There's limits
everyone
to
would be
it.
at Alabama, and then no one would be able to play them.
Exactly. Now, there's limits to it as to how many scholarships you can give out as a university and as an athletic program. Do we know what that number was for the Terps leading up to National Signing Day?
So they could have signed 25 max, and then it would have been 7 transfers maximum after that point. So yesterday they signed 20 with Bam Booker. He was originally a 2021 guy, signed with the 2022 class and enroll early. So they're at 20. So they got a good amount of spots left.
And then those spots would also be taken up for this year because of the COVID additional year. If any seniors returned, they would subtract from that extra 7. So right now, the extra 12.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Well, Locks and staff, I mean, they were quite literally burning the midnight oil with this class. Locks actually called this class the DNA of our player-driven culture. What do you guys think that means? Because this is a very, very good class. And what I heard him talk about in his interview was he wanted to go after a couple of things with these kids from winning programs and kids that have shown leadership traits on the field and in the locker room.
Yeah, I think just the fact that like you said, I think one thing that I've kind of heard and what Loxley kind of talked about is, like you said, these guys are team captains, guys that came from winning backgrounds, and I think there's still a strong sense where when you want to build that culture, you want those like-minded guys like a Rakeem Jarrett, who's currently in the program, who is obsessed with winning. Like, you want to infuse your program with that. So when you look at Colton Deary, for example, a guy who has lost 2 wrestling matches in his 4 years in high school. I mean, he's just a freak. You look at Jaden Saray, who's lost 1 game in his 2 years as a starting quarterback at Wise. A lot of guys have won state championships, so I think that's kind of a testament for and kind of what Loxley was talking about there.
Yeah, I think he was talking more about like the personality types and traits, but didn't do a good job of nailing that in that statement to me, because he talked about team captains and like player positions. All that. Basically, everything he listed is like every Division I athlete there is. These are the top 1 in 1,000 players in high school. Everyone that's playing on Division I level was the captain of their high school football team. Like, all of them.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's the very rarely. I mean, when you get like the St. Francis level, I guess there's others. But
there is a difference between being talented and being a leader, right?
Yes,
and
that's why
certain athletes have that leadership trait.
100%. And I think that's more of what they were going through, is the leadership aspects of it and the personality types. And I just feel like the examples didn't hit that as well. But it's definitely a thought process, a leadership, a vocal, and just like getting guys behind you more than just they won awards, they won games, and they were captains. But that's just the easier things to list.
Right. Well, everything we've heard about this class is that he nailed that. And you can tell by the looks of this class, the impact that this bowl game has had already to take this class from, I think they were ranked in the mid-50s before National Signing Day, to a top 25. I think they came in right at number 25 nationally and number 6 in the Big Ten. That's a big jump in one day.
Yeah, that is absolutely massive. And I think the last minute save saved me really, because at the beginning of the cycle, I definitely remember a time when someone asked me where I thought the class was going to end, and I said around 25 to 30. So shout out Locks for proving that I was right. So that was a sprint, but that was definitely a fun finish, probably one of the funnest finishes in quite some time.
Well, Locks thanked all of his people involved. Locke thanked the people involved in recruiting, the people involved in National Signing Day. As just a Homer fan on this podcast, I'd like to reach out and thank you, Ahmed. You entertain an awful lot of people with your year-round dedication, especially to the signing days. It's always everybody's like Christmas. Everybody's into the rest of it, but that is where it all comes down. I definitely remember you guaranteeing a top 30, and it looked real sketch there for a moment. But hey, when you get it done.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the kind words. Yeah, it's like I said, Loxley saved me. So he definitely heard me way back when. So he made sure I was
That's
right.
the only reason he did it.
That's
Just to
that's
save
why.
Ahmed.
That's why I was in the
Uh,
bonus.
Content is good and quality as always, man. So all right, let's get into this class, man. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the players out, give you the the nerdy stat info. Ryan, you'll give us your typical Homer and excited take for each one of these guys that I'm
They're
sure
all
you're going to have.
pros.
Right. But I want Ahmed, I want you to talk a little bit more about the personal side. Obviously, you've had conversations with a lot of these kids and their families, maybe some internal discussions among the staff about these players and whatever you're comfortable talking about. So let's start this off. And like I said, this National Signing Day got off to an earlier start. It actually happened right as we were in the middle of our broadcast for Birdland BS on Tuesday, as it started on fire. As word came out through a video on Tuesday night that 4-star running back Ramon Brown out of Virginia flipped his commitment from Virginia Tech to Terps. This is big, man. This is, again, you got the matchup obviously coming up in the Pinstripe Bowl with Virginia Tech. Getting a guy, again, a 4-star athlete, a running back, which is absolutely a position of need right now. 5'11", 202-pound out of Manchester High School in Virginia. 247 has him rated as the 19th best back in the country. What's Maryland getting from this kid, Ryan? Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is a guy that following the inside the black and gold boards. People have been banging on the table for a while. How did Locks miss out on this? We need to get him home. We need to get him back here. Why is our recruiting class suck? Well, calm down. It wasn't over yet, guys. he's here. He's back in the fold. He's all signed up. I think this guy is going to fight for playing time early and often, and we're going to have a really young, really talented backfield.
Yeah, and I just think like you said, Ryan, just the depth at the running back position was a clear need, especially after Isaiah Jacobs and Penny Boone left. And I think Ramon Brown, he's a guy where I think the majority of his production will come on the ground, but he's a guy that's proven he can catch the ball with his hands out of the backfield. So I think that he definitely gets himself into the rotation next year. And just from everything that I've heard, I actually know one of his old 7-on-7 coaches from a long time ago. And this guy, it sounds like from everything he says, is a guy that is always kind of working out, whether it's on the field or in the weight room. Is very diligent about that. I wouldn't say he's obsessed with football, but he definitely is not afraid to put in the extra work. It sounds like, some that just kind of enjoy it. He sounds like that he's one of those guys. And I think it paid off. I mean, you look at what he did even in the spring and this fall season, but in the spring, he almost ran for 900 yards. In the fall, he ran for almost 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns. Had a game in late September where he finished with 6 rushing touchdowns. So I think this is a guy that at 6 foot, 212 pounds, runs with some speed, but plays with a little power on him. Does a pretty good job of lowering his shoulder. So I think this is a guy that really quality add, and I agree. I think this was kind of a position that came into focus, and Elijah Brooks. People talk about the lack of success recruiting out of Matha, but Elijah Brooks, he knew that Ramon Brown, his family, from when he tried to recruit Ramon Brown to DeMatha way back when. So there's just kind of an example of why Elijah Brooks is here, what he's able to do. So hat tip for him, because they really wanted Ramon coming out of the summer. So good for them for rebounding and capitalizing on the lack of stability at Blacksburg.
And a little tidbit from the inside black and gold boards there that got me a little scared, actually, because I'm a Maryland fan, and bad things happen to us. so I had read that that Brown actually committed without talking to the Terps that day, that they were supposed to have a meeting, and that when they came out of practice and saw he had committed, and my immediate reaction with Fred was like, wait, is this a good thing? Could we just be getting trolled? Like, is this just like a thing that's going to fall back on our face? Like, tell more people
Negative Nancy.
about that.
Yeah. They literally text. I asked because I wasn't super optimistic going into the day. It sounded like from Virginia Tech's end, like they felt good. They felt good that coming out of that visit weekend, that they thought that they had done enough to kind of convince and solidify their I guess outlook on the Hokie future. But yeah, so what I was told was Maryland had a call with him later that evening. They felt that they were close to a flip when he had visited back in December, and they said that they walked out of practice on Tuesday. Ramon had texted them a link to the video, and they saw he had committed.
Wow.
So they were, saving my phone call. I'm sure they got on and reconvened, and all was good. But definitely good. South Carolina was also a school that was heavily in the mix there too. So that's a nice one.
Now, the only thing with him is he is our lone running back commit for this class so far. I mean, there could be potential ads later through the transfer portal or whatever you may have. Do you think this kid has a potential, based on his size and his athleticism, to come in and play as a freshman and earn some good minutes?
I think so. I mean, when you look at this year, because I think even Challen Falmatu, he kind of hinted at it on Instagram, but if you didn't know already, he is coming back next year. So kind of expect him to be that kind of like this year where you see Teon Fleet Davis is kind of, that lead back, and then everyone else is kind of complementing the lead guy. And that's kind of where I see Ramon stepping in between him, Roman Hemby, Colby McDonald, and then we'll see what Antoine Littleton, how he kind of factors in there. But I think this is a guy that, even though he doesn't enroll early, I think he'll definitely carve out a role for himself. How often he plays, whether he ends up redshirting, that I don't know, but I could definitely see him being an integral piece in that rotation.
So I don't know if they'll get it or not, but you would think with the one super senior in Famatal, the two sophomores and a freshman, they're going to be looking for a junior out there somewhere just to keep your, they always talk about one going out, one coming in type balance in your locker room. You would imagine that's where they're shooting for in the transfer portal, would be somewhere in that third year, something like that.
Yeah, the only thing that that kind of holds me back from saying that 100% is that at the end of the day, a lot of those guys that are in the portal, like they want to go in and they want to go to a spot where they are going to be a clear-cut starter. So
Right.
sometimes recruiting at that position is kind of tough, or not at that position, just recruiting out of the portal period is that's kind of the caveat sometimes. So I could see them sifting through. I think if they didn't get Ramon Brown, it was 100% guarantee in my mind that they were going to go after a guy in the portal. If maybe a guy like Damon Claiborne or something like that was still available going into February. But I don't know if it's as pressing now. Maybe they go through spring ball and maybe reassess and then go from there. But I don't think as of now that it's going to be the most pressing.
We got a lot of guys to talk about. So next guy, staying in Virginia, another commit to announce early on Tuesday. 3-star wide receiver Leon Houghton Jr. out of Richmond, Virginia. 6'4", 200 pounds, the 24th ranked overall player out of Virginia. This is going to get Ryan excited. He has Demas and kind of carriers, kind of size and profile. Had 40 receptions for 600 yards and 9 touchdowns his senior year. Ryan, this sounds like a guy that could come in and play big in the red zone.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for size, man. That's so old school when it comes to that. I know there are a lot of great wide receivers running around at 5'10" or listed at 6 foot and they're 5'8", whatever it may be. But there's just something about having that 6'3", 6'4" wide receiver and just the chance. Like, just the ceiling for that guy is always higher. He might be worse than every 5'10" player out there, but there's just that possibility in my head when you have that kind of size that your ceiling could just be crazy.
Yeah, and kind of the thing with him, and I know, Papi Chulo, I know he's a guy that is on the board, and he's definitely made it known that he likes the size and whatnot. So I think some people have brought up that maybe he isn't the most explosive guy, but I'd kind of say that Maryland doesn't always need to find those those 4'4" guys. I think a guy like Leon, when like you said, Ryan, you look at 6'4", 210 pounds. He's a guy who I remember asking another contact back in August whether he viewed him as a receiver or a tight end, and it was definitely receiver. So when you kind of think of just that length, the ability, the mismatches, the complementary wide receivers where you're able to present different threats, whether it's in the intermediate, short, or deep routes. I think Leon kind of helps provide that versatility in the room. So and obviously local kid coming out of Benedictine, Virginia. I think this was expected for a while, but I like this ad.
Yeah, I mean, having Dante Demas probably out for a good portion of the start of the year, losing Carrier, probably not having Brian Cobbs either, right? They're going to need that tall, lanky receiver to help replace some of that early on, especially. So it's good. But man, Leon was just the tip of the iceberg with the wide receivers in this class because it just gets better as we go on. The ink is dry finally on the guy that we've been talking about for a while.
Fred's been nervous. This was the most nervous.
I have. 4-star wide receiver Shalik Knotts out of Monroe, North Carolina is on the books. 6'1", 185-pound, number 32 overall receiver in this class. Number 5 overall player out of North Carolina. Got offers from UNC, Georgia, Tennessee, PSU, etc. I mean, a laundry list. Guy that didn't have a great senior year when you just look at the stats, 32 catches, 616 yards, 11 touchdowns, but his 2019-20 season had 59 catches for 1,006 yards and 14 touchdowns. This is what I like. This is another, when you look at the size-wise, this looks like another rack to me.
That's pretty much exactly what's coming in. Ranked very similar, looks very similar, and I know you've been nervous since the day Swan decommitted. Yeah. This was not going to come through. So it was definitely good to see the ink dry. Just stacking wide receivers at wide receiver U here. If Talia can't get it done with the class we're putting together, he's just not going to get it done.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie. When AJ Swan decommitted, this was a guy that it wasn't even based on anything that I heard. I was just nervous that he was going to decommit. So I was kind of also just on top of him, talking to his coach and Shalik multiple times a week, making sure everything was good. And I remember hearing a couple weeks back. I think it was just before Justin Fuente got let go, hearing that Virginia Tech was trying to flip him pretty hard, and talked to Shalik. I was like, Shalik, any interest in Virginia Tech? And he was like, nah, fuck no. And I was like, all right, well, I don't know if I need to worry about you, but
yes, sir.
Yeah, he's a guy. I remember back in the spring when I think I first heard him back in March, April. Maryland was like, yeah, this is our number one guy. And every time I reached out when he was uncommitted, both Shalik and his coach said there is no school that is more consistent, that is recruiting Shalik harder than Maryland. Mike Miller is on Burden. Those guys did a really good job. Scott Chadwick, director of recruiting ops, he comes from Myers Park, so he has some local recruiting ties down in North Carolina. It definitely a team effort to get this one done. But once he got on board, there was very little concern. So I think this was definitely good for this staff to identify wide receiver one and go out, execute, and no concerns.
Absolutely, man. This is a big one, but it didn't stop there. Staying a little closer to home, Ahmed, you got to see in person, his 4-star wide receiver Octavian Smith Jr. announced his commitment and signed on the dotted line with the Terps. This is the kid out of Paint Branch High School from the Silver Spring area. 6'1", another 170-pound wide receiver, number 317 overall rated prospect in the nation, number 6th overall in Maryland. What I really liked about this, because I actually watched the live stream of him getting announced and everything, man, the emotion and the energy in that room was unreal. Wasn't a huge crowd. There might have been maybe 30 to 40 people in there, but the energy was absolutely electric.
The thing I like about this kid is clearly smart. I mean, he was looking at Northwestern before us, decommitted from them, and was looking here. I always like the high character, type schools, you know what I mean? Like you see, he selected Maryland over Navy and Northwestern, and it's just gives me that little bit of confidence. He's going to be able to get through class. He's going to be able to stay academically eligible. He's not going to want to run to LSU and take first grade spelling as a major. He'll be all right. He'll be all right.
Yeah. He's a guy. He has a really good head on his shoulders. Very mature. And always, I think whenever I see Octavian, 75% of the time he's got that big old smile on his face. So he's just a guy that whenever you're around him, it's just good vibes. And on the field, played a lot of quarterback. And I remember seeing him towards the end of his senior year, and he was like, yeah, coach, kind of going into playoffs, I think he's going to give me a chance to play receiver a little bit. And I talked to Coach Naismith after Octavian's commitment on Wednesday morning, and he said, not a lot of people know what Octavian looks like as a receiver if you're not in Paint Branch in our football practices. But what's kind of wild is that locally there are a lot of people that say, he might have an NFL future at cornerback. So I think
Wow.
so I think that is kind of intriguing. And even Octavian mentioned, maybe you see me on defense and things like that. And I think when you think of a guy like Isaiah Hazel, and I'm not saying Octavian will end up flipping anything like that. I think he's more of a capable wide receiver. I think he has really good speed, gets in and out his breaks really well, and is able to get really good separation. And when you talk about a guy like Leon Houghton, where he has that size, Octavian Smith is the guy that has that speed. So I think he's more than a capable wide receiver, and I definitely see him having that impact, potentially, seeing the field very early next year. But I do think it'll be kind of interesting when you see a guy like Isaiah Hazel, who maybe just wants he made the conscious decision, hey, I want to just get on the field, and if I'm not going to get on the field sooner on at receiver, then I'll switch to defense. So if that ends up being a case, or if Maryland needs another corner, maybe due to injury, things like that. Octavian is a guy that definitely gives them that positional versatility.
It worked out pretty well for Trayvon Diggs doing the same thing in Alabama into the NFL.
What's
For
funny
sure.
is what's funny is that he was Maryland told him you can make a lot more money at cornerback, and Trayvon had no interest at playing defense at Maryland.
Wow.
So if only he listened, but I guess it all worked out in the end.
All worked out just
Wrong
fine for him.
for the wrong team now, but it worked out for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we round out this wide receiver core, and they've got this guy labeled as a wide receiver, maybe an athlete, so another guy that you can move around a couple different places. Perry Fisher out of Lincoln High in Tallahassee, Florida. So there's that Florida blood coming in. 6'2", 185 pounds, number 70 athlete nationally. 6'2", 185 pounds. They've got him labeled as an athlete. Is this another guy as well that could potentially move to DB? He's got the size for it.
I think he'll end up staying at wide receiver. He was a guy that he came in the summer and tested really, really well. And I remember getting the call right in the pretty much final hour of his visit, and they pretty much was told, hey, he's coming. He is a freak, 6'3", 180 pounds. He plays quarterback down at Lincoln too. So just kind of like Octavian Smith. So I think he's a guy he'll play receiver, but was definitely getting tracked by the in-state schools in Florida. So this is a good ad.
Yeah, I mean, another versatile player. It's got to be something for these kids, too. I mean, I know every school has kids that flip every once in a while, but Loxley just seems to have a knack for, like, moving these guys in positions. You talked about Isaiah Hazel. Well, when I look at a Leon Halton, we talk about the 6'4", 200. You talk about the crazy success Corey Deitch has had on, like, such a small window.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, at December, we decided we didn't have enough tight ends. Hey, bud, can you be a tight end? Let's do this. We can make you a tight end. And he looked great. I mean, for that
CJ
kind
Dupree
of
at
preparation.
fullback.
Yeah. So, I think CJ might go back to tight end. But, yes, he's very, very useful. I just think that might be a little bit of something extra when you talk to these kids. They're kind of tweeners, to just show your success at things like that. The fact that he could probably pick up the phone, call Trayvon and be like, didn't I tell you you were going to make more money as a cornerback? Don't you wish you would have listened to me immediately? Maybe gotten there a year earlier for training, and Locke, we've seen with the late night locks, he has that kind of fucking telephone role that he can just pick up and talk to anybody.
It's called a Rolodex, Ryan.
Rolodex.
For old people.
I'm not old enough for it. I tried to pull the word. I've seen it on videos.
Oh, man. Well, like I said, he rounds out a very, very impressive wide receiver core in this class. Again, a position that we were already in a decent spot in. Obviously, we're losing some guys, but this just adds to the talent pool there. But we know linebacker was an immediate need, especially after the departure of Terrence Lewis, who never took a snap as a Terp. Brandon Jennings, which that one hurt. And confirmation today, Asita Smith's going in the portal, right, Ahmed?
That is correct. He entered early this morning.
Right. So linebacker was definitely a position in need, and we definitely addressed it. We got our prize jewel in this class, the one that originally we thought got away, but wasn't gone for long. 4-star linebacker Jayshawn Barham out of the Power St. Francis Academy flipped the script, stayed at the crib. This kid athletically looks like a freak. 6'3", 230 pounds, number 108 overall nationally, number 3 out of Maryland. Man, this kid looks like the real deal. Could come in and play tomorrow.
Ahmed's been telling us about this kid for a long time. I'm going to have to pull some clips from earlier, but I remember him saying he had a quicker first step than Chase Young. Are we still sticking with that?
This is that guy.
No,
Huh?
I said that about Chop. So
Okay.
Okay. Well,
sadly.
he's pretty. He did pretty good as a freshman.
yeah. I think Chop just, I think it was just getting acclimated to the swing of things. I think, but yeah, Jay Sean he's an animal. I mean, I've been projected as an inside guy, but realistically, he really can play just about any position in that linebacker room. He's just such a physically gifted man. This was such a crazy recruitment down the stretch. Just
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know how many recruitments I've seen like this to this degree. But yeah, I mean, there's just to be able to get him on board. Obviously, Maryland fans know that at this point he gave Maryland his word on Saturday morning, and then was going to announce, and then South Carolina changed his mind once more. And I personally don't know if Barham communicated with both sides during that, and I think that kind of led to a lot of the confusion. And I don't put any fault, because at the end of the day, I think it was a lot of pressure. So at the end of the day, it maybe, if anything, was just a teaching moment, anything like that. But yeah, I mean, turned out that was just really the beginning.
Well, I can tell you somebody who was in his feelings about it. That was Coach Beamer down at South Carolina's, and he let that know publicly as he talks here.
You'd have to ask the young man that you're referring to. I know I can't say that it's a surprise when this particular young man committed on Saturday. About 10 minutes later, I got a phone call from somebody in the know up there that said, just so you know, it's all part of the plan. He's going to flip on Wednesday and go to Maryland. So I can't sit here and tell you that I was shocked. But when you're on the phone with a young man as late as 10:30, 11 o'clock last night, and he and the mom are telling you how they're so thankful they found a home, how appreciative they are of how we do things, how they knew that South Carolina was the place for him on his very first visit to South Carolina, and how excited they are for the future, you feel pretty good about things. So certainly with the young man you're referring to, some strange things happened overnight, which, that's a story for another day. But again, we got the right people here in this program that signed today, guys that you can win with, and you win with people. And we certainly got the right guys here today. That's for sure.
If you want to hear what tears sound like in South Carolina, that's it.
Yeah, he got the Brian Kelly accent wrong.
I mean, listen, you got people out there talking, and it sounds like he was kind of alluding it to, that this is some master plan by, the Terps and Maryland. I know, Ryan, you've got your opinions on this. What's your take on this situation and how it kind of unfolded?
First of all, I just think it's a whiny bitch move to say anything about this. Like,
Yep.
Everyone knows that recruiting is dirty as hell in a million different ways. Like, your job as a head coach is to shut up about it so that no one tells everyone else what you're doing too. Like, I think that this coach will end up being caught up in something big in the next couple years, because there'll be lots of head coaches that don't like what was just done in public. And so why keep his secrets? I really don't care. I don't care whether Locke set this all up or not. Number one, because even if Locke thought he set it all up, it's still up to the kid putting his signature down. So Locke could think it's all set up and still get trolled by the kid and not come. And
Right.
Number two, we're all in this because of the entertainment value, correct? Like, I go to watch football games for the entertainment value. I follow Ahmed's site for the entertainment value. That's what it is. So even if this is all set up, all it means, instead of Locke being the greatest closer in the history of time, he's the greatest showman in the history of time. So congratulations, Locke. Like, why would you not want that in charge of your program? I couldn't care which way it is.
Yeah, I think I think this will be the last time that Shane Beamer ever goes to sleep at 10:30 at night when he's recruiting a 4-star, let alone going up against Mike Loxley in the final hour going into National Signing Day. What sucks is that, like, I respected Coach Beamer. I still have respect for him, because I know a lot of those people in the program, and a lot of those people are good people, and a lot of those people. There's just a lot of people that have really good things to say about who Beamer is as a person. But I agree with you, Ryan. I don't know how how common it is for a coach to just rant like that
Just
to
to air
that long.
laundry
Yeah,
It's
about a
not.
kid that's not there.
You
Even
never
and
hear about
yeah,
this.
exactly. And I have no doubt in the latter part that, hearing from Jay Sean and his mom that, they're happy they found a home. But like at the end of the day, like that was still early in the night. And two, this is we all we have to acknowledge that this is just pretty much Saturday flipped for both sides. Like at the end of the day, what Maryland fans felt on Saturday is what South
Yep.
Carolina fans felt yesterday. And I mean it's exactly that. And from what I've understood, from what I've asked around, I feel very, very confident that there was no master plan. That this was also just so far removed from something that Jay Sean wants to do. That something Jay Sean would do. He's so against having like the media, the attention on him. I mean,
More
we're talking
private.
about a guy that has several times been requested by ESPN to do one-on-one interviews, and Jay Sean's like, I have no interest. Like you're 17 years old, and ESPN comes to you for an interview, and you're saying I have no interest, but now you're saying
I'll
you're
go.
just drumming. Yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
you're drumming up a fake commitment so that 5 days later you can spurn them. Like it's just illogical to me, and that's kind of what I don't have or that's what I have an issue with. And I did see an article this afternoon. I can't remember what outlet it was or where, but the coach Messiah, the head coach over at St. Francis, he said that there were no plans, and he brought up he had a running back that was dropped at Georgia Tech. He had his quarterback dropped by Bowling Green. This is it's everyone doing what's best for them. It's
Right.
coaches included. So that's my stance on it.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's close enough to know, it's you. If it's any closer than you, it's literally in the Maryland program. And to quote one Irvin Meyer, who just got fired today, if there's a leak, they will be terminated immediately. So it's like that's the only place this could come from. You think a Maryland staffer picked up the phone and called South Carolina? Come on.
Yeah,
Quit your whining, move on, take your L. You're gonna get another one. You're an SEC program. You're fine. You just got Spencer Rattler. Chill out.
Well, to quote Miss Barham, "Go Terps" sounds a lot better than "Go Cox."
That's
Yeah,
true.
that is
Just saying.
factual.
Just saying. So what can the fans expect from this kid? Is he an inside guy? Is he an outside backer? You think he can play as a freshman? Like what do fans expect from him?
Yeah, I have him as an inside backer. That's kind of where I've always kind of viewed him as. I think I don't know where he fits in, whether it's a Mike or Will. I do think that he has the physical traits to be able to play outside. I've heard some people say that he could line up as a jack linebacker for Maryland, and that doesn't completely surprise me. I could see him even, rotating like we saw Demean Robinson, who I
Right.
definitely had penciled in as a jack, and he got a chance to play a lot of Sam this year. So I think you look at a guy like Jay Sean, I think he is definitely a guy where you can just move him around. He is a true ball player. Gets here in January, January 20th. So this is a super, super talented kid and a guy that he's never going to go out and like Raheem Jarrett, he's never going to go out to recruit like Rack will like tell kids, hey, this is the spot. But people look at Jay Sean locally and they respect him. People look up to Jay Sean. Like that is definitely something to be said about him. There are a lot of people that just mimic what he does because they want to be like Jay Sean. So I think
That's awesome.
that also just kind of off the field, I think that really helps. So I can't believe they did it, but this was
Huge
massive,
get.
Yeah,
massive.
absolutely helps. I think if you don't add much more linebacker core, he's definitely going to be playing a lot of linebacker next year. I'd love to see Mr. Jennings drop out of that portal and come back and join
Right.
it because this is a nice, young, talented crew. We saw some good things out of you. I don't think it's going to happen, but would be nice. And we're still probably going to need just maybe one more spot. Maybe the next player can help us out with that.
Yeah, I was going to say we continue to add pieces to that linebacker core, and a name fans might recognize would be 3-star linebacker Andrew Booker, bam, out of Cincinnati, obviously the brother of Anthony Booker, the sophomore defensive lineman.
Tank.
This kid, 6'3", 230 pounds, another big boy, number 77 overall linebacker, number 29 overall player out of Ohio. Again, when you're just looking at the numbers, I mean, again, a piece that's a good-sized linebacker.
Another word here that we didn't hit the early, teach you about National Signing Day here is gray shirt. You want to cover this gray
Yeah.
shirt this kid just took?
Yeah, so this is you don't see it too often, but essentially, Booker was a 2021 recruit, and in order for Maryland to um, essentially build out their class and make it possible for how they wanted to close. Bam Booker, we mentioned, is the younger brother of Anthony Booker. He's a sophomore defensive lineman with the program now. The family's been very happy with Tank's, the older brother's, progress with the program. So the Maryland staff last year went to Bam and presented a gray shirt opportunity, which means he would serve as just a regular college student for this fall, and then he would enroll with the program as in the second semester, which would be in January, and then he'll have 5 years to play for. So he was a full qualifier last year, and essentially what he could have done in this past fall, he could have attended Maryland just as a regular student. He wouldn't have been on scholarship. He would have had to pay. And then from this point forward, from when he enrolls, he'll be on scholarship and he'll have 5 years to play for. Was an incredibly savvy move, and like I said, the whole move was made possible because the family was happy with the way Tank was progressing with the program. They felt comfortable with the Maryland staff in order to be able to get all of this. So Bam essentially just spent the past year preparing, going and getting in the weight room, things like that. I know his dad worked with him pretty closely, so I thought this was a solid ad last year. And then when you consider how this whole move was facilitated, and he had outside interest. I know at one point there was another Power Five program that was reaching out to him and trying to bring him up for an official visit. So out on the West Coast. So this is a really big room. And when you think about linebackers, of course, he's another guy where he could play inside. I think he'll end up playing outside though, asking around some people. But yeah, like I said, just a quality ad there.
Yeah, I think that most people hear the word gray shirt. They usually think of
That means you're sick.
academic ineligibility or like a medical condition that held them out. That's usually when we see it used. This is a really savvy way to use that gray shirt.
Yeah.
I think it was a heck of a move, and also with the whole family ties and how happy the parents are, it gives you a lot of confidence that you're going to see this kid for 3 years. So whenever he's at least eligible for the NFL, you're not going to see these two bailing just over a couple issues. They've built faith in Loxley in the program.
Yeah.
Well, another linebacker that's going to stay close to homers from Maryland, out of Archbishop Spalding, 6'2", 212-pound, three-star linebacker Kellen Watt, number 99 overall linebacker, number 24 overall player out of Maryland. I know this was a name that you had brought up in the past as well, Ahmed.
Yeah, Colin Wyatt, he's a guy. I actually predicted that he was going to be the first commit in the 2022 class, and I was slightly wrong. Well, I was just wrong. He was the second commit.
That's wrong,
So,
Ahmed.
yeah, that is wrong. Shame on me. But I really like this guy. I watched him the spring of his junior year during that COVID year. They only got a chance to play 2 games, but as just an outside backer, he fits in as a Sam for Maryland. But I watched him having to cover slot receivers, outside receivers, going downfield. He has the ball skills to do that. So that's kind of where I feel comfortable, where he kind of fits in as that Sam. And then he also lined up as an outside backer, as a defensive end at times this fall. Did a really good job sealing the edge, again, doing playing against the run. So I like this guy. Doesn't get in early though, but I think this is a guy where when you talk about the right guys that Maryland is adding,
Yeah.
with I mean, it starts with Kellen. So I really like this guy. I've been pretty high on him for a while, and Coach Kyle Smith, the head coach over at Spalding, could not say anything more nice things about him. So I'm a big fan of this signing.
Yep. Always good to have a good high character guy that's gonna come here and develop, and that sounds what this guy's gonna be. Bring his skills and work hard and get to the next level here under the tutelage of Loxley and company.
And the last linebacker of the class to be brought in, three-star linebacker Caleb Wheatland out of Chantilly, Virginia. Another one out of Virginia. Westfield High, 6'1" and a half. Don't discredit him for that half inch.
Don't take that half.
We all want that half inch. 220, number 95 overall linebacker, number 28 overall out of Virginia. Hadn't heard a whole lot about this kid, Ahmed, so tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, so he transferred over to Avalon, and he originally was at Westfield, and then like I said, just transferred in. But I love this guy. I watched him. He played against John Carroll about a month ago or so. And I think he's a guy. I don't want to say he reminds me of Chance Campbell because I don't know if it's the same comparables, but I think it's a guy where I think like Wheatland does a really good job against the run, but some might think that maybe he's not athletic enough to defend the pass. But when you watch him defend the pass, he's very disciplined. He has good play recognition. He has good just awareness for what's going on around him. I really like this guy. And then, like I said, he can lay a hit. He is reliable tackler in the open field. And I think that this is a perfect example of just the type of talent in the DMV that maybe doesn't get the national attention, but just with the amount of sheer talent in the area, there's just some people that do get overlooked. And I think that Wheatland is a guy that Maryland identified him, brought him in for a workout, tested really, really well, brought him in the following week or 2 weeks later for a visit. Everything went well, and he announced his commitment, I believe, the following day. So, and he gets here in January. He's one of the 8 early enrollees. So, I really like this guy. I think that if there's probably a sleeper that ends up playing a lot more, either in the 2 deep or plays a bigger role in the defense, sooner rather than later, I think it's going to be Wheatland.
Well,
You're
I got
talking
my
dirty
half
to
inch.
me, and I like it, Ahmed.
You had me at Campbell.
Yeah, right. Both of our eyes lit up as soon as you said Campbell. I mean, that's the first thing you think of with Campbell is his football IQ, right? And that's like the big thing I think this defense was missing. That true leader in that, in that linebacker core that can put guys in position. And if this guy has that trait, man, I'm super excited for that.
A
'cause
healthy
that's
Campbell would have
need.
had us at 8 wins this year instead of 6.
I agree with that. 100%. 100%.
I think this guy's really good. I just remember like Chance Campbell, he wasn't very highly rated. I remember reaching out when I watched one of Chance Campbell's games and I texted one of the director of recruiting. I was like, hey, this guy is deserving of a bump. He's really good. And then obviously he did not get bumped and went to Maryland and was very good.
It's
And
good. We don't want him bumped until they get to Maryland.
Yeah, exactly.
He's here now. Don't bump him anywhere. Just leave him here.
And that's just really like the same kind of feeling I get when I watch Wheatland. I think this is a guy, and also just super respectful. He has a great head on his shoulder, so I think this is I really like this guy.
I'm excited, man.
Hopefully he does not like Ole Miss.
Right, yeah. Well, we talked about building up that relationship with the powerhouse school at St. Francis, right? And we all know, Barham was a big get from St. Francis, but it didn't end with Barham as the Terps get a big offensive tackle in 3-star Andre Roy, 6'6", 320 pounds, number 64 overall tackle, number 16 overall prospect out of Maryland. Again, another guy who had offers all over the board, USC, Penn State, Arizona State, Rutgers. There were a whole bunch of them that were in the mix. This was a big get, man, to get a duo of players from St. Francis.
I'll eat my crow. I'll start it here. I apologize. You all heard me right here on the podcast. When are we going to cut bait? Why do we keep bringing this turncoat Penn State player in for 100 visits where he's going to tell people to come with him? I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'll eat that one.
But this has got to have been one of the weirdest recruitments because like before he committed to Penn State, like he took in the West Virginia home opener, and I believe he left at halftime of that game was like very, very lukewarm
Of a great game.
Yeah, and it was just like he committed. He comes back 2-3 days later after he committed. Even when he committed, I was at the school. I was at St. Francis talking to him at 6:30 that evening, and by the time I got home, I literally got to my room, put my stuff down, checked my phone, and Andre Roy had just announced for Penn State, and his coaches didn't know. And then obviously just down the stretch, I mean, obviously he committed, he came on campus a couple times, and the whole time it was just kind of like nobody knows like where things truly stand. I mean, coaches, high school and college level. I mean, it was just a very weird recruitment. And then down the stretch last week, he got the offer from USC, ended up taking an official visit last weekend. And I had heard locally at the beginning of the week that he was going to flip to USC on Tuesday night. I checked in with the source actually at Penn State, and it sounded like Penn State, they were kind of getting the right words, but Penn State was told that he was signing with USC.
Wow.
And I think
UMD. You got those letters wrong.
Yeah. And I remember I posted my signing day primer, I think at like 12:30 or so. But I talked to Andre Roy's dad on Wednesday afternoon, and I truly believe this literally went down to the final minute, uh, literally like into the wee hours of the morning. So I don't even know if I could have accurately said at 2 a.m. that I think he's going to go to Maryland, because I don't even know if at that time it was known that he was going to Maryland. It was just very, very weird. And I think people might be surprised to hear that I view the Andre Roy commitment as more surprising than Jay Barham.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's so important to have that relationship with this school because it is an absolute powerhouse. And we saw during their signing day just how many athletes they're putting out in Division I, big Power 5 schools, man. So the more and more we can build this relationship, I hope in a couple of years we're talking about 4 or 5 guys at a time coming from this school. But you got a chance to talk with Coach Locks about how this kind of all came together with both kids.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, getting a chance to add Jason Barham, Andre Roy this morning, just two big elite guys, and for them to be local, for them to come out of St. Francis. I mean, how did that happen? And then what is the magnitude of those two signings?
How did it happen? A lot of hard work, pretty much a sleepless night. I can't tell you that I had any idea that it would happen, or, none of our coaches could say that we knew this would happen. But as with all our recruiting, our coaches just continue to remain very diligent in selling the Maryland brand. And, we've recruited those guys for 2-3 years now. There's some deep-rooted relationships that were already established. A guy like Elijah Brooks, who recruited him, or if they could recruit, I don't want to get him in trouble at DeMatha, but recruited him to DeMatha and has known him since, 6th grade. I've always told you guys about third-party validation, and for us here locally to have people that would stand in the gap for us to sell what great things we've done when we've been associated with some of these third-party individuals, really, I think, is what pushed it over the edge. I know both sets of parents would have loved to see their kids stay close to home. They both made decisions early on, and I think as they got closer to signing day, they started to see the value of what staying at home looks like. But I also think us being able to show that as a program, we did take a significant step with our program by becoming a bowl eligible team and getting into this cycle, along with the addition of Jones Hill House, our new facility, really gave us gave us a lot of firepower in terms of being able to continue to press those guys and sell the vision I have for Maryland football.
This just goes to show, man, everything that Locke's laid out, man, the foundations, the steps that he's put together that we all believe in, the three of us, it goes to show that coaches at these teams, and they're all buying into it and seeing it as well.
Yeah, I was definitely. I was actually at St. Francis, and I think right after I asked that question, probably 5 seconds in, Loxley talking, I was the whole St. Francis commitment ceremony was postponed because Jason Barham was late, and right when I asked that, Jason Barham walked right in front of me, and every bit of me wanted to just say, "Hey, Jason, come here for a second, just get on the press conference to listen to Loxley talk about him." But yeah, I mean, like you said, there's the inherent relationships with between Elijah Brooks and Jay Sean, and then obviously Coach Messiah. He's a former Terp himself. He graduated from Wooten as well, so local guy. So Loxley has the relationship with them. If you're on Inside the Black and Gold, I posted several times that Coach Messiah and Coach Locks were gotten on the phone again last night and talked for another hour. So those two have a good relationship. It definitely took every minute of the recruiting cycle to land his guys, but
sounds like
it definitely paid off in the end.
It's a bit different than the Beamer version of this story now, isn't it?
A little different, I'd say. Man, but we always talk about, winning games in the trenches, and getting Roy is huge. It's huge. But also adding a true center, I think, is just as equally as important to this team. And we ended up locking up 3-star Colton Deary out of Malvern Prep in Malvern, PA. This kid's unique, man. He's a 2-sport athlete as a wrestler as well. 6'3", 275 pounds, number 63 overall interior lineman in the country, number 25 overall prospect out of PA. When you think of wrestlers, they usually have a strong base, a thick lower half, right? So that's huge for a guy that's going to be playing center. And at 6'3", 275 pounds, he's a big body.
This could be really big for us in both sports. I mean, one of the things you severely lacked when you move over from the ACC to the Big Ten is wrestling. Wrestling's like God in some of these schools. You
Yeah,
have
especially in
20,000
PA.
You have 20,000 people show up to watch two guys wrestle each other. So like we're way behind the curve. So to get this guy in there for that and to have a center that can use all those skills, use all that training, and again gives you a little bit more confidence when they're playing these two sports that he's going to be here for a minute, that he's not just going to bail at the first sign of adversity.
Yeah, and I remember Deary when he ended up coming in for his campus or for his visit on campus and ended up working out for the staff. He ended up being one of the highest graded offensive linemen that Maryland had worked out, committed and non-committed prospects. They're really high on him. Everything I've heard about him is they're really happy about him. They don't really care about his stars or ratings because they look at the type of player he is. They look at his background, the fact that he's a wrestler. And I mentioned that he's only lost 2 games or wrestling matches in his 4-year career. So he's a guy that is a winner, has that mentality, comes from a really good family, just a highly motivated young man. Also played both ways for the last 3 years in football, offensive and defensive line. And when I watched him against Spalding this fall, it didn't really look apparent that he was exhausted until midway through the fourth quarter, which is pretty impressive. I mean, you're thinking
Yeah.
about when you go in the trenches, that's a lot of snaps. It takes a lot a lot out of you. So I think this is a guy. I know I already went with maybe a sleeper pick, but I think that when you think of the biggest long-term impact, I guess, from when you think about, you take the 4 stars out of the equation, I think it's going to be Colton Deary because he's a guy that factors into that long-term equation along the offensive line.
Yeah, when you think of wrestlers too, they tend to usually have a little bit of a nasty streak with them, which
Yep.
is what you want out of your offensive lineman. This is big for me. Again, locking up somebody for the next 3-4 years at the center position, somebody that Leah and whoever's going to be under quarterback when this guy starts playing is big for this team moving forward.
Nobody's going to be under center. Do you even pay attention, Fred?
That's true. Well, the offensive line commits didn't stop there, man. We ended up getting a pair of offensive lineman teammates out of Florida. We'll start with 3-star offensive tackle Jacavian Nonar out of Glade Central in Bella Glade, Florida. 6'7". Yep, 6'7", 285 pounds. The number 114 overall tackle nationally, number 154 overall player out of Florida. What are we getting in Nonar?
Yeah, you're getting a freak. I mean, this guy is definitely an athletic guy. Was definitely wanted by some SEC and was originally committed to Pitt, backed off, and Maryland was kind of involved. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Maryland was just beginning to get involved when he was committed to Pitt, but then ramped up after the fact. They had stayed in touch. And during the bye week, I believe it was after the Indiana game, Loxley went down to Florida, got a chance to check on Nonar and Kindred. I didn't have them on my big board at the time for our subscribers because they were kind of in holding pattern on their end. But they had been able to kind of consistently hear from the staff, from Coach Brian Williams, Coach Locks, Coach Brian Braswell, the offensive line coach, and they felt at peace with Maryland. And Maryland was always willing to take both Kindred and Nonar. So that's kind of what made both of their commitments possible. So Nonar at 6'7", 285 pounds. He's a really good guy. He's going to project at left tackle. So that's kind of that's a position of need for this guy, for this class. So I really like this addition.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a frame here, man. This guy's got what you need to build on. He is an early enrollee, so it gives you like that 1% chance that it matters for this year. But really, you got to keep this guy happy for at least 2 years. He's going to build throughout the spring. He's going to build next fall and spring, and then you hope that he can contribute for fall of 2023, I guess that is. And just that's kind of where when you build an offensive line in the Big Ten, you're not really going to have a lot of freshmen that are capable of that.
Right. Yeah, from the sounds of it, man, he's got a Jared Gaither type of frame, again, being this young, 6'7", 285, that's big, and he's still got a lot of room to grow.
Yep.
But it does sound like it was a package deal as we end up getting his teammate, 3-star offensive lineman Keon Kindred, 6'5", 290 pounds, number 136 offensive tackle nationally, 185 overall player out of Florida. What's the story on Kindred?
Yeah, he was also a guy that was kind of getting some interest on the end from like a FIU, FAU. So the thing with Kindred and Nonar though is that since they committed, they were solid. And then after Billy Napier was hired down at Florida, the new Florida staff made a pretty big push last week to try and get Nonar and Kindred to take a visit, whether unofficially or officially, this past weekend. And then in hopes of postponing their decision until February, Nonar and Kindred ended up taking the ACT on Saturday, so they didn't end up going up. And then Sunday I checked in, didn't end up taking a visit. Florida again was trying to make a push. They kind of gave an expiring offer that they had to commit by, I believe it was Monday night, and
Quit
they were
flexing on
like,
kids, Florida.
yeah,
This is not the 90s.
yeah. Well, Oklahoma did do it with Parnell Motley years ago, and Parnell let that expire, and then he called Oklahoma and said, "Okay, actually, I want in," and Oklahoma was like, "Okay, we'll take you." So, but in this case, Maryland was able to hold off. That's kind of a big thing, and like we said, both of these guys are going to enroll early, so definitely big. And like I said, with Nonar projecting at left tackle, Kindred's the guy at right tackle.
Gotcha. All right. Well, the last bit of the offensive lineman came in the way of a JUCO transfer in 3-star offensive lineman Max McCree out of Kansas City. Now, this kid's out of Iowa Central Community College, 6'6", 285 pounds. This kid's the real deal, though. Top 50 JUCO, a 2-time JUCO All-American. This is a guy that sounds like he could come in and make an impact next year immediately.
Yeah, I think so too. Like you said, 6'6", 285 pounds. He actually was a full qualifier out of high school. So he will come into Maryland with 4 years to play 3. Will enroll next month. And he was another guy when he came in for his official visit. I believe it was Michigan weekend. He was another guy who really impressed the staff. Wasn't number 1 tackle on the board, but definitely was in that top group for the staff. Maryland was able to beat out Houston and Syracuse, and then Missouri. Surprisingly, they extended an offer on Tuesday evening. I had already expected McCree to sign with Maryland ultimately, but what made that interesting is that even though McCree hadn't taken a recent visit to Missouri, he is from Missouri. So
Right.
that's kind of that hometown school, kind of going up, testing Maryland a little bit, but Maryland's able to pull it out. And they kind of want that guy where they more of a plug and play guy. So McCree definitely fits that bill, and another tackle that's going to be here next month.
And that's great, man, because, again, you're not expecting a whole lot of turnover with this starting group on the offensive line, so to add another depth piece or a piece that could come in and compete right away is huge. Locks talks a little bit about Max here.
Yeah, we were looking for either experienced JUCO players or transfer portal guys. And, obviously there's still some of those transfer portal guys out there that we feel can come in and help us early. And, Max has a unique story in that, he's a junior college player, but he was a qualifier out of high school, and he actually has 4 for 3 years. And we've been able to find these guys, the last few years where they come in and they have more than 2 years of eligibility. And he's a guy that was highly rated and highly evaluated out of junior college, one of the top JUCO tackles in the country. And when we got him here on campus, we liked his size. We think his best football is still ahead of him because we feel like he has the framework to be able to put some size, mass, and strength on. And, with the type of eligibility he has, it's not necessarily important that he has to come in and play right away. But, I think he definitely has the skill set that we're looking for to be able to improve our depth and add to our offensive line room.
Yeah, the depth is super important. I kind of hope this isn't a starter next year. I want to be that team that brings back all 5 starters and gets that done for a year. That'd be amazing because you just see how successful it is in places like Minnesota and Michigan State that can bring these guys back as a unit and just do work. But the depth is very important because we got stupid lucky with lineman help this year. Just crazy. As unlucky as we were with wide receivers, we were that lucky with linemen. And that's not happening 2 years in a row. So get us some depth. We already used our get out jail free card with having literally no backup potential. So fill in that 2 deep.
Absolutely. I mean, there were times last year where we needed some help, especially on the right side of the line there. And to get a guy like this who might be able to fill that kind of swing tackle role where he can go back and forth between the left and right side would be a huge benefit to this offensive line if we do get everybody back for sure. And we all know, how important all these offensive line signings are and how crucial they are to the success of Leah and our quarterback of the future, as 3-star quarterback Jaden Saray officially signed with the Terps. Another guy also staying close to home out of Henry Wise High up in Upper Marlboro, 6 foot, so not real tall, 6 foot, 205 pounds, the number 45 overall quarterback in the country, number 19 overall player out of Maryland. Seems to be a dual threat. I mean, as a senior, 11 games completed, 101 of 146 passes for 1,995 yards and 30 touchdowns to 6 INTs. Also rushed for 483 yards on 45 carries and 6 touchdowns. This sounds like a kid that, could be a Terp for a long time and be a starter and a contributor the minute Leah leaves.
This guy's good. And I was very happy with him when he was signing the first time, but I'm even more proud and happy at the signing now because this guy has faced adversity before he ever got here.
Right.
The fact that he signed with us and then AJ Swan came in, he was the new hot name, at least in the fan base. Like, he might have been getting the, talk from the coaches like, we still need you, we still want you, all these things going on, but the fans could have ruined this one. There's a lot of kids that would have been emotionally weak and not liked the fact that everybody jumped on board the Swan train and then were super mad when he left and kind of just dismissed the fact that we still have a very good quarterback committed to this class. So bravo to you for being that mature, that big, that strong,
Absolutely.
to stick through with what you wanted to do, know that's your future and that the fans are going to react crazy all the time. It's just what it is.
Yeah, I think Jaden, when you talk about winners, like I said, or I think I said at the beginning of the show, but he's only lost one game in his 2 years as starter, and unfortunately, it did come in the state championship game against Quince Orchard, which is an unfortunate way to end your high school career. But like you said, definitely leaves Wise as an accomplished quarterback, passing for almost 2,000 yards as a senior, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And when you kind of watch his tape, you definitely see some progression from his senior year. He's able to tighten his throwing motion a little bit more, get the ball out a little bit better. Has some improved power on his arm as well. So I definitely think he's a guy that he's listed as an early enrollee. We'll get to it later. But I think he's a guy that really helps stockpile and maintain the depth at quarterback.
Yeah, it's huge, especially, again, keeping that talented of a quarterback at home that's right in your backyard. So this is a big get for the Terps. Glad it's finally done. So we've talked about the trio, or really the I think it's 4 wide receiver targets Jaden's going to have to throw to now. But how about a future tight end? Terps signed 3-star athlete, labeled as athlete, Preston Howard out of McDonough High in Owings Mills. But you look at this guy's athletic ability and his size, 6'5", 220 pounds, the number 31 overall athlete in the country, number 11 overall player out of Maryland. He's either got the frame of a Megatron wide receiver or another Corey Dyches kind of tight body fill for
Megatron.
a tight end.
Now you're talking my speed.
Yeah, he was really Mr. Versatile for McDonough this year. I remember talking to Coach Sule a couple weeks ago. Just did a story for the site on his emergence, and he played quarterback, he played wide receiver, he played tight end, he played linebacker, and he played safety.
Wow.
And I'm definitely missing a position because it feels like he said like 8 or 9 different positions that Howard played. But this was his first season where he didn't primarily play quarterback. He played quarterback at times. I believe he finished with 8 touchdowns at quarterback, all on the ground. But just to help with the efficiency on offense, they kind of struggled a little bit. But he's a guy, he ran the show for 3 years at quarterback. I think he's definitely a talented athlete. I'm super curious to see how he develops because I do think just the natural athleticism is there, but to see how it develops as a tight end. I mean, he's only truly played tight end. He played it before quarterback, before he got to primarily as a quarterback at McDonough. But to really hone in on those skills to become a college Power 5 level tight end, I think it'll be fun to watch. But he's a guy that wants to be here, that made it known to Maryland that this was the place he wanted to be. And from what I understood, Maryland just was like, okay, let's. And we're able to find a spot, get him on board. And I think this is definitely out of McDonough. You definitely want to see that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see if he does stick at tight end. Again, he's got the size and the athleticism to stick there, but we brought in, 3 or 4 tight ends last year. There's still a lot of guys that haven't seen the field, and Weston Wolf and Husbands and, CJ Dupree just kind of scratched the surface. So we got a lot of guys that are in line there for the tight end position. So it'd be interesting to see if he sticks there.
Yeah, I
moving
agree with
forward.
that.
All right, so
Crazy high football IQ to play all those positions. That's my big thing. Be able to just in one season play all those positions, you have to
Yeah.
know football inside and out. Be in
absolutely
control of everything mentally on top of his physical
He,
attributes.
he is Mr. McDonough.
right, absolutely. So let's flip back over to the defensive side of the ball, and obviously Nick Cross, a potential NFL guy soon. Jordan Mosley graduating. So we ended up grabbing 3-star safety Gavin Gibson out of William Amos Ho in Hickory, North Carolina. 5'11", 175 pounds, number 77 overall safety, number 25 overall player out of North Carolina. Tell me about him. What do we expect?
Yeah, another guy, former Navy commit, was down to Maryland, Virginia. Kind of had some other schools, ECU, Tulane in the mix, but it was pretty much Maryland, Virginia, and he took his Maryland official, was pretty much 100% on board. And then wanted to take a last minute official to UVA, and they kind of were neck and neck. And then Brockman Mendenhall got let go or stepped down, and that just pretty much sealed it for Maryland. Really smart player. I think he comes downhill really well. I had one person that saw him in action a couple weeks prior to him committing to Maryland and said that just the defensive IQ that he plays with and the ball instincts were very evident. And then when we talk about these early enrollees, he's another guy that gets here earlier on campus. So, the safety room very well could lose both Nick Cross and Jordan Mosley on the back end, replace him with Bo Braid and Dante Trader. So replenishing that room would be step one, and Gavin definitely helps solidify that.
I'm
Ryan's
not going
gonna
to hear
cry.
it. I'm not going to hear it. As far as I'm concerned, Nick Cross and Jordan Mosley will be back next year until I'm told otherwise.
Nah, this is again, it's a needed piece. To your point, again, if we have some of this rotation and people move on, you're gonna have to have guys to come in here and eat up some minutes. Last year I had my guy in Roman Hemby. This year, I think my guy is this guy, 3-star defensive lineman Daniel Owens out of Calvert Hall in Baltimore County, 6'2", 245 pounds, number 109 defensive lineman nationally, number 21 overall out of Maryland. I've been following this kid's story for a while now through social media. I've watched a lot of his clips on YouTube. This kid looks like the real deal. We talk about those leaders in the locker room. There's been plenty of videos out there that shown him in that role. Again, that's important, I think, for many reasons. There's just a lot to like about this guy. And again, he's right in our backyard at Calvert Hall.
Yeah, I think this is a guy that his work ethic is just really unparalleled. I really like him at 6'2", 245. Had some injuries with his hand that kind of didn't limit him. He didn't miss any time, but was playing with the club at times. And he was actually wearing a club the day I was at practice, and it ended up being the day he announced his commitment to Maryland. But I think this guy, I know so many people. If they've heard me talk about prospects in the past, I always talk up Keandre Jones because of just how mature he was, and you feel like you are younger than him talking to him, even though
Right.
it doesn't matter what your age is. But Daniel Owens, he is exactly that. I mean, he's just a genuine, such a mature kid. And I think just the fact, I remember bringing it up with Maryland, and they agreed, but just the fact that he's such a good kid, so well mannered, so mature. If anything, if he was a fringe take, it helps move the needle and helps him become a take. And he's just really the exact type of kid that any program, if you're building, rebuilding, he is the type of kid you want. And we talked about personal stories at the beginning,
Yeah.
and I'll give one. Daniel Owens, he wants to do engineering when he gets to Maryland, and my sister, she graduated with engineering at Maryland. So when Daniel Owens, when he committed, and I was talking to him that day of practice and whatnot, and I said, still engineering, and he said, yep. And I just brought up, I was like, hey, my sister did engineering at Maryland. She graduated. She's working now. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to talk to her. And it wasn't like, yeah, I'll get back to you. It was, yeah, like, I want to set it up. And sure enough, 3 days later,
Wow.
Daniel Owens is talking to my sister, asking her questions just about her experience at the engineering school, what he can do to prepare. Granted, I mean, he's a senior in high school, so like, there's so much that there's so much you're going to just learn when you get there.
Right.
But I think that's really just like a testament. I wasn't going to ever do that when I was 17 years old, but he knows, he never wavered on the fact that he wants to do engineering. I really, really like this guy. He's already my favorite guy this class.
That sounds awesome. I can remember that feeling listening to Ruben of like, there's no way this dude's 18 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
that was-
Grown-ass man.
Yeah. There's just some guys you feel that with, and it's you can't help but not want to root for them. And Danny Owens, I can't wait till Maryland fans hear him talk.
Absolutely. Glad to have him in the fold for sure. We get another one in our backyard out of Archbishop Spalding. 3-star DB/athlete Lavon Scruggs out of Severn, Maryland. 6'2", 190 pounds. Number 87 overall athlete nationally. Number 27 overall out of Maryland. What do we think on Scruggs? Is he another guy that sticks as a DB, or with the athlete, does he move around?
Yeah, I think so. He'll definitely come in and he'll have his chance at safety. I think he's a guy where I mentioned this to the Spalding staff, where I see if safety doesn't work out, I could see him adding on maybe 15, 20, 30 pounds, and he's able to kind of become an outside backer. I think that's kind of where he could also fit in a little bit. I think he does a really good job of hitting, and I'll be kind of curious to see maybe how safety, how that plays out long term. But I think this is a guy, when you talk about how he became a Terp, he had the offer just about the same time as Kellen White did. I think they offered one day apart.
Right.
But Scruggs ended up coming in, worked out for the staff. Actually ran a faster 40 time than 4-star Penn State commitment KJ Winston.
Wow.
Yeah, there were rumors that KJ ran in the 4.8s, and
Yeesh.
Scruggs was high 4.5. So I think this is a guy. And when you talk about, again, guys that want to be here, Scruggs is that.
I like the rumors trying to get out of the defamation suit. I like it. That's a pro move. That's not something I would do.
To your point on that with Scruggs, though, I have seen him very active on social media, very prideful with Maryland, and that's
always
huge.
wanted to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a spot.
Yeah. Well, Locks continues to plant roots and grab guys out of the Sunshine State. Next up's 3-star cornerback Lionel Whitaker out of James Ritgards High in Tallahassee, Florida. Another corner at 6 foot. Kind of fits the bill of what Locks always looks for. 165 pounds. Number 94 cornerback nationally. 135 overall prospect out of Florida. A kid some of your subscribers on Inside Black and Gold are labeling a sleeper.
Yeah, Florida State and Miami were reaching out, showing interest, gauging interest, things like that. And Whitaker was never showed signs to waver. He was the first commit in the class, and pretty much the connection with Maryland is his 7-on-7 team has a recruiting group led by Florida assistant Gadsden County assistant Devin Rispris, who coached with Brian Williams together at Godby High School down in Florida. So I did a story way back when the Jones Hill House first opened, and Devin Rispris was talking up Maryland, and him and Brian Williams have a really good connection, and Devin Rispris has a lot of ties down in Florida. Brian Williams has a lot of ties down in Florida, and
Right.
that it's Loxy talks about that third party validation. That third party validation helped draw that interest, helped brought Whitaker on campus for a visit, and then ended up locking him in. So definitely a good win for Maryland early on, and to keep him on board throughout.
Yeah, being our only cornerback commit, it's big to make sure this guy works. So I hope he's as good as everyone's willing to. Where are we going to reach to find some more cornerbacks? I know they had to be looking for more than one in this class.
Yeah, I think it probably just could be portal from here on out. But they looked at Mansour Delaney. It was a very weird recruitment. They had a commitment out of him. I feel I can reveal that now. But and then obviously he ended up going to Virginia Tech. Didn't really had a solid chance to flip him. Was kind of lukewarm. But yeah, so I think we look at portal to find that next spot.
What's your feeling on the Bennett brothers? You think they stay or are they gone?
I could see them coming back.
Yeah,
I
nice.
didn't even have to cover
Ryan
my
was
ears.
scared. That's great. That's good, man. I mean, obviously we don't know anything 100% official yet, but that's huge.
And we know they're not brothers, guys. It's just an easy way to refer to them.
Exactly.
The only thing I'd say is I very well could see JB being the one just to like gauge his interest, but I do think there is a possibility that he comes back. I think that's kind of up in the air right now, so we shall see.
That's good to hear. Well, that rounds out the class. So we talked earlier about guys that are going to be academically eligible to enroll early, right? And we said that there could be 8 or 9, just kind of depending on Jaden Surrey's situation. Let's go down this list to let everybody know who is actually enrolling early. And it's, again, some impactful guys. You're talking about the likes of Jayshon Barham, Bam Booker, Gavin Gibson, all four offensive tackles, to your point, Ryan, earlier. That's huge. To get all four of your offensive tackles in early, especially get them in there, get into the nutritional program, getting them lifting weights, getting them ready, man, that's big.
All you got to look at is Bam Booker. If you look at Bam Booker's pictures last year versus Bam Booker's pictures now, he's all like, that gray shirt was basically an early enrollee already, and the improvement that he's made in that amount of time, he looks like a whole different player.
Yeah, I think, like you said, just that the ability to just kind of have that year to develop things like that, I think that was really big. So he'll be leaned on, I'm sure.
Now, we did get Caleb Wheatland in early as well, and the name that we've been talking about that's still up in the air. Where are we at on Jaden Surrey?
Yeah, so I got a text yesterday afternoon. Actually, shout out Logan because he was the one that kind of alerted me, and he was like, "I don't think Jaden Surrey's enrolling early, even though it was already announced by the program." So I ended up reaching out, and from Wise's side, Jaden himself said he is not enrolling early, and Wise said that he academically he can't enroll early. And I do know that this was something that was kind of pushed a little bit more after AJ Swan backed off his pledge, because if you remember, AJ Swan was going to be here on campus a little bit earlier than Jaden. So I think that was kind of why. So for what I was told this morning is that it's still up in the air. So that's the expectation we're going with. If you see me on the site from here on out, I'm going to say 8 early enrollees until it is confirmed that Jaden Surrey is enrolling early. So I think that one is going to be kind of interesting. I don't know what can change if there are academic holdups.
I mean, I can come up with a couple.
Yeah, I don't know if we should say them though.
But I mean, he could take his GED this weekend and enroll early with that instead of doing his last English class.
Yeah,
but they could even try to find a way to work the whole online high school with all the COVID stuff that's happened. Maybe he's able to dual enroll. I know when I was in high school, you could go to community college for some class, whatever. So there's got to, if they're thinking there's a way, there is a way. It's just whether it works or not.
Yeah, but you also got to factor in, you're dealing with PG County, and PG County doesn't make anything easy.
That's true, but the GED system's above their head.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. So I think that
they want their only quarterback recruit in early. That's basically what this is. I don't blame them.
I don't blame them. So it completely makes sense. So as to why they want to do it. So, but yeah, for now, I'm going to continue to say 8, and we'll monitor Jaden's status.
Good luck on your GED test, buddy. I'm rooting for
right.
When in doubt, pick C.
Exactly. Well, Locke's got a chance to talk about the importance of these early enrollees as well.
I'm also excited that we have 9 guys enrolling early, mid-year enrollees, and 4 of the 9 are offensive linemen, which allow us to really replenish and add to that room, which to me is the maybe the last piece or the missing piece to us taking that gigantic step that we want to try to take this upcoming season. And to be able to have these guys here to go through spring ball up front, get into jump start on lifting, conditioning, and training will be really beneficial for our program as we continue to grow this thing.
He said gigantic. Do you know how much Locke has been playing down and slowly trying to lower everyone's expectations?
Right.
He just said a gigantic step, and we just had a bowl eligible season. Yeah, that's good to hear from the homeboy here, though, the full-on Homer fan on the podcast.
For sure, man. So we got to talk about this class overall. Obviously, Locke's comments about it not being a large class and not a really top-heavy class, but great quality the entire way through. I know we've talked a little bit about, a couple guys as we've gone through. Give me who are 2 of your signees you're most excited about. Maybe not the under-the-radar guys, but obviously the 2 guys that stand out you're most excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to say Jayshon, just because of what Maryland lost in the linebacker room and what he gives that linebacker room and what he gives them as early as next month. I think this is a guy that, even from the beginning of the cycle, Maryland made it clear, and I agreed with them, that this is a game changer. They cannot miss out on him. He's the number 1 guy in state, have relationships with him for so long. And when you look at what he's able to do on the field, I think that he's a guy that really helps make that front seven even scarier. And I don't think we've even mentioned the fact that he'll now be in the same linebacker room as former 5-star Damian Robinson. So
Right.
that's again, when you talk about stockpiling talent and you look at the defensive line. So I think that he's a really big one. And then I'm gonna go Jakevian Onar because I think he is a guy that obviously he's one of 4 tackles, and I think Andre Roy is a guy where he maybe comes in, works on that body composition a little bit more, and he's able to improve that athleticism a little bit more once he does reshape that body a little bit. But Nonar, he plays with the mean streak, has a great punch, great athleticism, with great feet. And I think the fact when he's getting here early, when you want to develop those Florida guys, you want to keep that Florida pipeline strong. Maryland's obviously through the last couple of years been able to pluck some high quality talent out of
Yeah.
Florida. So I think just getting a guy like him and getting him in your system, and obviously when you talk about left tackle, you can make the argument that's your second most important position, especially on offense.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really big one.
Yeah, for me, Barham is definitely number one for me. I don't need to rehash all the reasons. I mean, you laid it out there pretty good, but I think a close number 2 for me has got to be Ramon Brown, because that was the one piece that was missing from this offense last year was a true lead back, somebody that could come in and be an actual difference maker and in the backfield. We talked about it at ends, how they were missing that explosive play from the run game. Got a little bit better towards the end of the season. But this was a guy that wasn't in the fold until last minute. So to get him and to get a guy that's going to make an impact pretty quickly with this program, for me, is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I think that Barham doesn't make my top 2 only because of I think when I think of excitement, I think more of anticipation. Like I would just want to see him now. And I think for Barham, I think his floor is, I don't want to call it a floor, but his expectation is about Jennings from last year. So I know he's going to be good. The ones that really get me excited and why I want to see him play right now is Bam Booker, to see the development that he's had in a year already without being actually with the team, to see what he can do in another spring, what he can do with actually being involved in everything, the development there because we do need that another piece in the linebacker room. And then a little bit more long-term, the Colton Deary is a really exciting thing to have a center that people think a lot about, that can really be the base of our next offensive line, to start working around that next grouping of people to keep this thing rolling.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think you make a great point. And I was going to ask you guys, what do you think the position that was best addressed in this class? I mean, there's obviously loaded wide receiver core coming in, loaded group of linebackers coming in. But for me, I think the position that was best addressed has got to be the offensive line because of how important it is. To your point, Ahmed, offensive tackle is priority number 1B, for this team, because you can have a great quarterback, but if you don't have a good offensive line, it does you no good. So I think this class and having a guy in, the JUCO transfer in Max, being able to come in and be able to potentially play right away is big for this upcoming 2022 season.
Yeah, I mean, it's so massive. For pretty much 2 years now, all I've heard is we need tackles. We need tackles. At one point,
Right.
I was asked to come up with a list of like 50, 60 offensive tackles that can be scouted, that could be available. And I was just like, oh my God, just get 2 of them. Just get this over with. And I think now you get 4 of them, you get them in early, all 4 of them being early enrollees. So I know we've mentioned it so many times, but man, that is so huge for this unit, to be able to really stabilize this room. Takes a lot of the pressure off offensive tackle next year. I mean, maybe you need 1, and that helps manage your resources and your focus so much easier. I mean, this year they spent so much time trying to find tackles because they needed to get tackles. So to get Andre Roy, to keep Nonard, to keep Kindred, and to get Max McCree, I think that was I try to usually avoid, but I couldn't avoid picking offensive tackle as best addressed there.
It's got to be the hardest position to recruit there is, period. I mean, number 1, you want to go somewhere with other talent already there because you can't do it on your own. You can't show out being a great offensive lineman, period, on your own, because the guy next to you has to be able to chip with you. The guy next to you has to be able to block with you. You have to do it as a unit. So it's hard to get that first guy to take the step. Number 2, every guard and tackle at college was a tackle in high school.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
the like 1% of the people at guard were guards. They were all the biggest, baddest dude on their high school, so therefore they played left tackle. So
Right.
there's such a limited availability across the board for this position. So to be able to get, none of them are 4 or 5 star, heads, but they're all great. They're all a great frame. They all can those guys don't grow on trees. Period. They're
Right.
going to the straight blue bloods. So like this is a really really good offensive tackle class, whether it looks like it when you're just staring at star ratings or not.
Well, when you're looking at this class, there's got to be a position maybe that jumps out of you as something maybe a little underwhelming, right? Something that we still need to address because there are obviously a few more scholarships left to give out. There's the potential of the transfer portal, right? And other ways to address fixing this roster even more. I guess for me, I'll lead this one off. I think the biggest area of need is going to be cornerback, right? To only get the one true corner in this class and still having the question marks that you do have around the Bennett brothers, right? These are guys that are out there starting every day. You don't have a whole lot of depth behind that. So I think cornerback's got to be a position of need, and I'd like to see that come in the way of transfers, guys that can make an immediate impact.
Yeah, absolutely true. The Bennett brothers being back would be absolutely massive for this year, but you still would only get this year. So we need to start building that position group no matter what. Younger transfers would even be great in this position. Somebody that only played 1 year and has come and just didn't like the fit would be more of the thing instead of the junior that we were discussing earlier at the running back position.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is once AJ Swan decommitted, I think you need finding that second quarterback. I think that's kind of the biggest question mark because when you look at the quarterback room, you have Talia, who I expect that he'll return next year, and then you have Udinsky that's right behind him, and then now you have Jaden Saray. So I think recruiting a quarterback that's going to be available, if it's a high school kid, convincing them that long term, even though we just signed a freshman quarterback, yes, you still have a viable chance to come in and start. Obviously, you want to pitch the word compete versus start, but I think that's hard sell. And I think when you look at the transfer portal, like we mentioned before, a lot of those portal quarterbacks are going because they weren't playing at the previous stop. So
Right.
convincing them to come in to sit potentially behind at least for another season because it would be at this point for one season. I think it's a tough sell. I'm going to be very interested to see what develops. If Leah comes back, what happens with Udinsky? I think there's a lot that kind of is still up in the air with that room. And finding that second quarterback is going to be very interesting to track.
Well, I mentioned it earlier. John Griffith, St. Francis quarterback,
Yep.
became available today as he officially decommitted from Bowling Green. Just saying, Locks, the name's out there. Go take another look. Be a kid who's in your backyard that might be able to come in and add some depth.
more talking heads at St. Francis is not a bad thing.
No.
Even if he's only here for a year before he goes to some other school.
Not at all. Right.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I remember actually last year, I think some people on the site heard it, but there's a local quarterback, Jordan Morse, who's a 2022 kid over at Rock Creek. And Maryland pushed pretty hard for him to actually, because he's a year older, he could have skipped his senior season and walked on at Maryland. So I think that there could be some ways for Maryland to maybe get creative and find that second quarterback in a pinch.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
They will try everything.
Well, I know Locke's comments have been a little bit about, the transfer portal being the next thing. I know we were looking at offensive tackles being a goal, cornerbacks being a goal, wide receivers I had heard some rumblings about before this Demas commit. Is there anything changing in the transfer portal world, Ahmed?
Yeah, so I would say from the portal perspective, the biggest names to know are Florida wide receiver Jacob Copeland. He took an official visit one day after after entering the transfer portal from Florida. Maryland's in the mix. South Carolina, I've heard a couple other Power 5 schools that are trying to make a push for him. So he's one guy. Pierce Quick, Alabama offensive tackle. There's a lot of confidence there. Seems to be a Maryland Georgia Tech battle, but no firm indication of what the commitment timeline is. FIU wide receiver Tyrese Chambers, he's another guy where he has been looking for a Maryland offer for years and years and has it now. expect him to at least step on campus, whether it's officially or unofficially, once the dead period's over. And then you have Stanford tight end Michael Weiss. He's another guy that Maryland brought in for an official just one day after he hit the transfer portal. So I would say that there's a possibility that we see some transfer portal additions at on the offensive line, at wide receiver. I expect Maryland to look, like we mentioned, look at another quarterback in this class, whether it is high school transfer portal. I do think that both of those could be open. I think we'll look at someone in the secondary, whether I'd say more so a cornerback than a safety. And then I think Maryland might look at a defensive end. I don't know if it's a pressing matter though, but I do think there are some things in play. And then Loxley did mention that there were some guys that they brought in for visits that didn't sign in the early signing period and signed in February, that they're going to continue to recruit. And as soon as he said that, the name that came to mind was Matt McCoy. He's a 3-star offensive tackle that Maryland was first on. He absolutely blew up. He just took his visit to Maryland for his official December 10th, and he's got Maryland, Miami, Florida, and Ole Miss in his top group, and the main competition is expected to be Florida. We'll see. Maryland has 4 offensive tackles now, so I think they'll probably try and reassess and then I guess re-gauge things, reanalyze things coming out of the dead period. So I think that'll be interesting, but I think it'll kind of mainly be portal from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, first you got to recruit your own backyard right now. You got to make sure that you can, if you can keep any of them, with the Cross, the Mosley, the Bennett brothers, all of the guys that are up in the air. You got to recruit that first, then win this bowl game up in New York City, and move on to getting somebody else for the February signing period. So
exactly.
It's going to be an active winter, and we've got off to a really good start.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Terp fan, man. They got the bowl game coming up in just, I guess, not even 2 weeks at this point, a little under 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Up in New York, I saw pictures yesterday. They got the field started. They got the goalposts going in and everything. It looks beautiful. I'm excited. I guess Ryan and I will take our laptop and take our headsets up there. Maybe we'll do a post-game recording, maybe a little alcohol influence like we did in Minnesota, Ryan. Make it a fun podcast for sure.
Well, that's a lot of stuff to be carrying around New York City. We might just have to go with a laptop and bad audio quality. You'll have to forgive us for one episode.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Yeah, that'll be good. I'll be there so we can, they'll figure something out. But yeah, it should be a good atmosphere. I'm definitely excited, and I think it's best case scenario. You get a chance to play Virginia Tech in New York City, so it should be a good one.
Well, make sure you guys follow us on social media. And if you haven't done so yet, what are you doing? Subscribe to Inside the Black and Gold. It's a great holiday gift. If you know somebody out there that wants to, get inside information, it's a big Terp fan, it'd be a great subscription to give as a gift. You can follow us all on social media. You can follow me at FredBLBS, follow Ryan at TerpsBEspert, follow Ahmed at Gafir the Turtle. Send us your questions. If you have anything that you want us to talk about while we're up there in New York, send us an email at shellandtellpod@gmail.com. Ryan, sign us off.
All right, guys, let's keep this thing rolling. We're going to be up in New York the whole day before the bowl and to watch that win again over the Hokies. Let's get this thing going. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. We don't talk to you again before then, and we celebrate Boxing Day with another W. Till next time, here's to wishing all is well under the show.